O holy and gracious God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations on all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. For you, O God, you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So a long time ago, there was a hermit priest who accepted guests for only one day every 10 years. The hermit was the holiest of men, and it was a great honor to be invited to his home. So the town would select their very best citizen to go. The citizen could also bring a guest. The good citizen who was selected knew the town drunk. He wanted to save the man, or at least teach him humility. So he chose the drunk to go with him. As they walked through the forest to the hermitage, the good citizen said to the drunk, "The hermit is a holy man above all others living. Please do not do anything that would offend him, or he will send us away. I'm doing this for you to learn humility because I am not convinced that you have any." The drunk said, "I will be as polite to him as I can manage." They arrived at the hermitage and walked inside. The hermit, being a very large man, sat waiting, and he motioned for them to step forward. The good citizen falls to his knees while the drunk stands, and the good citizen says, "Oh, wise hermit, I'm the best citizen in the town. I have worked tirelessly for my fellow man. I have come to you to save only one more soul and to teach him what humility is." He noticed that the drunk didn't say anything, so he slapped him on the leg. The drunk says, "Oh, wise hermit, I have only one thing to tell you." At this point, the drunk told a joke that was so bawdy and raunchy and feral that it has been lost to history. The good citizen sat aghast. The hermit was stone-faced, like a monument, but motioned for them to step forward. The good citizen stood to step forward, and the hermit shook his head and waved him off and pointed at the drunk. I'm really not pointing at any of you. The drunk, being very surprised, stepped forward cautiously. The hermit leaned in close to the man and said, "All right, stop me if you've heard this one." It was suggested that the word humor may also come from the same word as humility. Humility derives from the Latin word humilis, meaning on the ground. I suppose if you're rolling on the floor laughing, then humor could easily come from those origins. The word humilis, which we refer to as humility, comes from the Latin word humus, meaning earth, and is a connection to the word human through the Hebrew words. Are you lost yet? All right, human, earth, earth on the ground, humility. Got it? Or we could say that being humble is an aspect of our humanity, that it is a recognition of our limits. We have great gifts, abilities, and skills as humans, but no one of us has all the gifts, skills, and abilities. We need one another to accomplish together what we cannot do on our own. This was an intentional design of the human. God created us to be in community, to thrive in community because of our need for one another and for the gifts, skills, and abilities that each of us have. Paul, or whoever actually wrote the letter to the Ephesians, embraces this reality and grounds it in his understanding of the gospel message, that we are to walk in a manner worthy of our calling, meaning we are to live our lives in ways that reflect who we are as God's beloved children. He names the traits, the attitudes, the ways we live in relationship with one another, saying that we are to walk or to live with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, making every effort to maintain the unity of the Spirit and the bond of peace. Theme Perkins, who is a biblical scholar, reminds us that this letter, while it was addressed to the saints in Ephesus, is different from a lot of the other letters that we read in the New Testament. Many of the letters, especially the ones that Paul did write, were addressed to a specific community to take care of a specific instance or issue that that community was having. That's not the case in this particular letter. This appears to offer a general insight into what it means for any of us, regardless of our circumstances, to live as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus Christ. Now, I've mentioned before that for that first century audience, this way of living would have been challenging. The Jewish people and those who became followers of Christ lived under Roman occupation. Not only were they burdened financially, they were also surrounded by a way of life that was counter to the way of life that the prophets and Jesus and the apostles modeled, taught, and proclaimed. Now, the details of our circumstances are a little different. We're not under Roman occupation. But we also face challenges. And as followers of Christ, let's acknowledge that we seem to be a shrinking body within the wider society. Fewer people connect in with traditional Christian congregations. There is less a sense of unity, of being joined together as a people, seeking to bring about God's way of life on earth. In fact, there is less tolerance, less patience, less kindness, less compassion, and yes, there is less humility. You know, all around us, we hear people who are convinced that what they know and believe about fill in the blank is utterly true, that their knowledge is absolutely complete. And sometimes we are they. We also operate under the assumption that what we know and believe is the sum total of what can be known and believed. We all have the capacity to become rigid in our stances, unbending and unwilling to hear anything that does not align with what we think we know. And so it takes a measure of humility to step back and create space for new information, new ideas, new concepts. For the first century Jews and Christ followers, humility was considered a virtue. It was an expression of holiness. The Gentiles, on the other hand, those who were not Jewish nor of the Christian faith, perceived humility as demeaning lowliness. Now, I'm not sure that we are all that comfortable with a call to humility. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, because it smacks of humiliation. And frankly, none of us enjoys being humiliated. If we are doing unto others as we would have them do unto us, then surely we would not engage in behaviors that are humiliating. But having a humble posture, approaching one another with humility, is more about how we position ourselves in relationship to one another. We're not lording over others. We're not being asked to be doormats. Instead, we're acknowledging our need for one another, acknowledging the limitations that we each have in terms of our gifts, skills, ability, knowledge, etc. So how then do we do humility to others? Honestly, I believe this is a posture of curiosity. It is a seeking to know more. It is an openness to learn more, to understand more. It creates space to take in and to explore, to discover. We do this when we ask questions with a genuine interest in what the other has to share with us. Last weekend, the youth, our student ministry, gathered at Hutto Lake Park to do some fishing. And I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with two of our students as we walked around the park. And with Pastor Kristen leaving, I wanted to know more about what the students themselves wanted in a student ministry, in youth ministry. And I got to be honest with you, their responses surprised me. They told me that they wanted to spend time discussing what they hear and learn on Sunday morning, and then to explore what they heard and learned and see how that might speak into their current experiences, and fishing and other fun things. The point is, had we not had that conversation, I might have encouraged our church to go in a different direction around student ministry. As it stands, I want to have more conversations, not only with our students, but also with their parents, so that we can together figure out what is it that meets the needs of our students the best. The same is true regarding our church and the direction that we are going. I can make a lot of assumptions. I've got a lot of years of experience in leading a church, but I do not know what you all know. Rather than lead with my limited perspective, it makes more sense for us to share what we see and what we know, and together for us to discern what's next. And so over the next several weeks, I hope to find opportunities to get together with you where we can talk, where you can share your hopes and your dreams, what it is that you see, what it is that you believe God is calling us into. I don't sing. You should say thank you. But oh Lord, it's hard to be humble. When you're perfect in every way, can't wait to look in the mirror. Come on, because I get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be a heck of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can. Thank you, Mac Davis, and all of you. With God's help, I pray that all of us will do the very best we can, with humility and gentleness and patience with one another. Amen.